The night is quiet, too quiet. Shadows stretch across empty streets, and the wind whispers secrets you don't want to hear. Doors knock where no one stands. Windows rattle with unseen hands. Something watches, waits, and knows when you're alone. Every step, every breath could be the last. I was living alone in a small rental house just outside of town when everything began. It was a quiet, one-story place at the end of a short, dead-end road. Only 5 houses lined the street, and at night, the silence felt almost unnatural, like the world itself had gone still. No traffic, no voices, just the occasional whisper of wind brushing against the trees. I worked from home as a freelance graphic designer, which meant days would pass without me stepping outside. Groceries, maybe. That was it. I didn't get visitors, not unexpectedly, at least. Anyone who knew me always texted first. That's why the knock stood out. It was 8:45 p.m. on a Thursday. I was sitting in the living room, half watching TV, when 4 firm knocks echoed through the house. Not loud, not soft, but deliberate. I muted the TV instantly, my heart skipping for a second as I listened. Silence. I almost convinced myself I had imagined it until 2 more knocks followed. Slower this time, more intentional. I stood up. Each step toward the door felt heavier than it should. The house, which normally felt safe, suddenly seemed too quiet, like it was listening with me. There was a small peephole in the center of the door. I leaned in and looked through. A man stood on my porch. He was holding a medium-sized cardboard box. He wore a dark jacket and a baseball cap pulled low over his face. Nothing about him immediately screamed danger. Mid-30s, maybe. Ordinary. Too ordinary. I opened the door slightly, keeping the chain locked. Before I could even speak, he said, "I have a delivery that requires a signature." His voice was calm, practiced. He glanced down at a handheld device and read out a name. It wasn't mine, not even close. "I think you've got the wrong address," I told him. He frowned slightly, then looked at the box, then back at the device, then directly at me. Slowly, he read out the address. My exact address. A cold sensation crept down my spine. "I'm telling you," I said, a little firmer this time, "no one by that name lives here." He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he just stared. A second too long. Then he nodded. "Must have been given the wrong information," he said. "I'll take it back to the truck." I watched him turn and walk down the driveway. Something felt off. I stepped out just enough to glance down the street, but there was no truck, no van, no car, nothing. He passed my mailbox, reached the end of the street, and turned the corner. Gone. And just like that, the silence came rushing back. I closed the door slowly and locked it. At the time, I told myself it was nothing, a mistake, a weird delivery mix-up. But deep down, something didn't feel right. The next night, it happened again. Almost the exact same time, 8:45 p.m. I hadn't stopped thinking about the man since the night before. The way he looked at me, the way there was no vehicle. It didn't sit right. So when the knocking came again, I was already tense. 3 knocks this time. Sharp control. My chest tightened instantly. I didn't move right away. I just stood there in the living room, staring toward the door like it might open on its own. Then, slowly, I walked over. This time, I didn't make the same mistake. I went straight to the peephole. And there he was. Same man, same jacket, same baseball cap, and the same box in his hands. A cold wave of dread washed over me. I didn't open the door. Instead, I spoke through it, keeping my voice steady. "You already came by last night. You've got the wrong address." There was a pause on the other side, long enough to feel deliberate. Then he replied, calm as ever. "I just need a signature. The system says it has to be delivered tonight." His tone hadn't changed, not even slightly. That made it worse. "I'm not signing for something that isn't mine," I said firmly. Silence again. For a moment, I wondered if he had even heard me. Then he said, "All right." I leaned closer to the peephole. He stepped back from the door, but he didn't leave. Not right away. Instead, he stood at the edge of the porch, watching the house. Slowly, he turned his head, first toward the front windows, then toward the side of the house, then back to the door, like he was studying it, mapping it, counting something. My grip tightened on the door. Every instinct in my body was screaming now. This wasn't a mistake. After what felt like far too long, about 15 seconds, he finally turned and walked down the driveway. Again. No vehicle, no sound of an engine, nothing. Just his footsteps fading into the distance. I stayed at the door long after he was gone, my eye still pressed to the peephole, waiting for him to come back into view. He didn't. That's when the unease turned into something worse. Fear. Real, creeping fear. Because now there was a pattern, and patterns meant intention. That night, I checked every window, every lock, twice. But even after I went to bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone anymore. Not inside the house, but not unobserved either. On the 3rd night, he didn't come. No knocking, no footsteps, nothing. And somehow that felt just as unsettling. I remember sitting in the living room around 9 p.m., staring at the door, almost expecting it to happen again. Minutes passed, then an hour. Silence. Eventually, I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Maybe it really had been a mistake. Maybe he figured it out. Maybe I was overthinking everything. I even laughed to myself at one point. Quiet, nervous laughter at how paranoid I'd started to become. But that relief didn't last long, because on the 4th night, everything changed. It was just after 9 p.m. I was in the kitchen, standing at the sink, washing dishes. The sound of running water filled the room until something cut through it. 4 knocks, but not at the front door. They came from the side of the house, right near the dining room window. I froze. The plate in my hand slipped slightly as my heart slammed against my chest. Slowly, I turned off the water. The silence that followed felt suffocating. Then 4 more knocks, this time from the front door. My stomach dropped. He wasn't just coming back, he was moving around the house. I forced myself to walk into the dining room, my footsteps quiet, controlled. I glanced toward the window. Nothing. No one there, just darkness pressing against the glass. I moved to the front door and looked through the peephole. It was him, but this time he wasn't holding a box. His hands were empty. That alone sent a chill deeper than anything before. I didn't speak. I didn't move. He knocked again, slow, heavy. Then he stepped back, and this time he looked directly at the peephole, like he knew I was there. A sharp jolt of fear ran through me, and I stepped away from the door, holding my breath so he wouldn't hear even the slightest movement. Seconds passed, then 30. Finally, I heard his footsteps retreat. I waited. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5. Only then did I move. I turned off all the lights and slowly walked from window to window, keeping myself hidden behind the blinds. That's when I saw him, across the street, near the tree line, standing completely still, facing my house, watching, not moving, not leaving, just waiting. A deep, instinctive fear settled in my chest. After about a minute, he finally turned and disappeared into the darkness. That night, I locked everything again. Every door, every window, even the ones that were already locked. But this time, it didn't feel like enough, because now I knew the truth. He wasn't trying to deliver anything. He was studying the house, and I was part of it. This story began in the days leading up to Christmas. I live near Glasgow in Scotland with my family, my parents, my siblings, and our pets. We're a close-knit household. Most nights we'd all gather in the living room, watching movies, playing games, or just talking for hours. At the time, I was 16, almost 17, old enough to stay up late, young enough to still feel safe at home. And Christmas was always my favorite time of year. That night we were all sitting together watching A Christmas Carol. The house felt warm, comfortable, normal. Outside, the cold winter air pressed quietly against the windows, but inside, everything felt safe. Until we heard it. A knock at the door. It wasn't loud, it wasn't urgent, just a simple knock. No one thought much of it. My mom got up casually, walked over, and opened the door. No one was there. She stepped outside, looking up and down the street. The front garden wrapped around to the side of the house, so she checked there too. Nothing. No footsteps, no voices, no movement. Just an empty, silent street under the dim glow of streetlights. She came back inside, slightly confused, but not alarmed. We brushed it off. Probably kids. Where I'm from, there's a game called Chappie. Kids knock on doors and run away before anyone answers. It's stupid, but common enough that no one really worries about it. So we went back to the movie and forgot about it. For a while. A few days later, it happened again. This time I was alone in the living room, sitting at the table doing exam work. The house was quieter than usual, everyone else busy in their own rooms. Then, knock. I looked up immediately. My heart didn't race this time, it just felt off. I stood up and walked to the door, opening it without thinking too much. Again, no one. I stepped outside, scanning the street. Empty. Too empty. There wasn't even the sound of someone running away. No laughter, no footsteps fading into the distance. Just silence. A strange, heavy silence. I closed the door slowly, a faint unease settling in my chest. Later that week, messages started popping up in our family group chat. One by one, different family members mentioned the same thing, knocking, at different times, on different nights, but always the same result. No one there. At first, we joked about it, but then my dad shared something that made everything feel different. He told us that late one night, around 11:30 p.m., when the street should have been completely dead, he heard a knock. Not loud, not playful, but soft. Too soft. He checked through the peephole before opening the door. No one. Still, he opened it slightly, stepping outside just to be sure. And again, nothing. No movement, no sound. Just a cold, empty night staring back at him. That was the moment things stopped feeling like a prank, because kids don't play games that late, and they don't stay that quiet. From that point on, the knocking didn't feel harmless anymore. It felt like something or someone was testing the house. By the time Christmas Day arrived, the knocking had become something we didn't talk about as much, but none of us had forgotten it. That day itself was perfect. We spent it the way we always did, opening presents, laughing, eating way too much food, watching movies together. The house felt alive, warm and full of noise. For a while, it was easy to forget everything that had been happening, until the night came. After hours of eating, I started to feel sick, like I always did after Christmas dinner, so I went upstairs to lie down. I must have fallen asleep without realizing it. When I woke up, everything was dark, silent. I checked my phone. 2:01 a.m. The entire house was asleep. No voices, no footsteps, not even the usual creaks you hear at night. Just complete, suffocating silence. I knew I wouldn't fall back asleep. Once I'm awake, that's it. So I stayed in bed, scrolling through my phone in the dark, trying not to think too much. Minutes passed, maybe longer. Then, a faint knock. So quiet, I wasn't even sure if it was real. I froze. My eyes slowly lifted from my phone, staring into the darkness of my room. My heart started pounding. Was it my door? My window? Or just my imagination playing tricks on me? I didn't move. I didn't even breathe properly, because deep down, I knew something wasn't right. No one should be outside at 2 in the morning, not on Christmas night. After what felt like forever, I finally forced myself to sit up. Every instinct was telling me to stay still, but I couldn't. Slowly, carefully, I got out of bed and walked toward my bedroom door. My hand hesitated on the handle. Then I opened it. The hallway was dark, empty. For a brief second, I felt stupid for being scared. Then I heard it. Footsteps coming up the stairs, slow, uneven. My first thought was simple. Dad. He usually stayed up late. Maybe he was just coming to bed. Relief washed over me for half a second. I stepped forward slightly, about to say something, and that's when I saw him. It wasn't my dad. A man stood halfway up the stairs, someone I had never seen before. My stomach dropped instantly. He moved strangely, unsteady, like he was heavily intoxicated. But that didn't make it better. If anything, it made it worse. Because now there was a stranger inside the house, and he didn't even seem fully aware of what he was doing. I backed away slowly, my entire body trembling, trying not to make a sound. Somehow, he didn't see me. I slipped back into my room and quietly shut the door, my hand shaking as I held it closed. Outside, I could hear him, walking, stumbling, opening doors, one by one, every room, every step getting closer to mine. My mind went completely blank. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to hide. All I knew was it was only a matter of time before he reached my door. I couldn't just stay there and wait. Every second felt like it was pulling him closer to my door. My heart was beating so loud I was sure he could hear it through the walls. I slowly opened my bedroom door just a crack. The hallway was still dark, but now I could hear him more clearly. Footsteps, dragging, unsteady. Then I saw him again. He was coming out of my younger sister's room. That was it. Whatever fear had frozen me before, it snapped. I turned and ran, straight to my parents' room. I burst inside and shook them awake, my voice barely working. "There's someone in the house." My mom woke up instantly. My dad took a second longer, confused and half asleep, but the panic in my voice was enough. Within seconds, we were all moving. We stepped into the hallway together, the air feeling colder than it should have been. Every shadow looked wrong. Every sound felt amplified. We made our way downstairs, and that's when we found him. He was lying on the couch, passed out, beer cans scattered around him, some open, some spilled. The smell of alcohol hit instantly. For a second, none of us moved. It didn't feel real, like we had walked into someone else's nightmare. Then my mom shouted at him, "Get out of our house!" He stirred slightly, groaning, barely opening his eyes. Then, in a slurred, aggressive voice, he said something that made my stomach twist. "This is my house." The way he said it, like he believed it, like we were the ones who didn't belong. My mom tried to wake him properly, shaking him, yelling, but he was like dead weight, unresponsive, heavy. That's when my dad stepped in, fully awake now, fully aware. He grabbed the man, pulling him up with force, dragging him off the couch. The man resisted weakly, mumbling nonsense, but he couldn't stand on his own. My dad dragged him toward the side door. Every second felt tense, like at any moment the man might suddenly snap and turn violent. But he didn't, not yet. My dad shoved him outside into the cold night air. "Don't come back," he warned, his voice sharp and final. Then he slammed the door shut. For a moment, silence. We all just stood there, trying to process what had just happened. It was over, or at least that's what we thought, because seconds later, glass exploded inward. A deafening crash shattered the silence as the window beside us broke violently. We all jumped back in shock, and then we saw him, the man. He had punched straight through the glass. Blood ran down his hand, but he didn't seem to feel it. Instead, he leaned forward, pushing his face through the broken window, smiling, wild, unstable, wrong. For a split second, the image burned into my mind like something straight out of a nightmare. He started shouting, threats, angry, incoherent words, saying the house was his, saying he knew who we were, saying he would come back. My dad immediately moved to call the police, but the man didn't stop. He stayed there, half inside, half outside, screaming into the house like he was trying to claim it, trying to claim us. Eventually, he pulled himself back and stumbled away into the night, leaving behind broken glass, blood, and a silence that felt heavier than anything before. This happened around 2010, when I was about 6 years old. At the time, my family and I lived in a quiet neighborhood in Springfield, Oregon. It was just my mom, my older brother, my sister, and me. My dad was deployed overseas, so it was only the 4 of us at home. I was very close to my dad, and without him there, everything felt just a little less safe. One night, it was raining heavily, the kind of rain that soaks everything, turning the streets into shining reflections under dim streetlights. I was sitting on the front porch with my mom while she smoked a cigarette. I didn't mind the cold. We were just watching the rain together. It felt calm, peaceful even, until we saw him. A man walking slowly down the middle of the road. He was wearing a large yellow raincoat, oversized, almost swallowing his body. It stood out immediately against the dark, rain-soaked street. No one else was outside, not a single car, not a single person. Just him, walking, slowly, deliberately. My mom went quiet. I remember the way her body stiffened beside me. We both kept watching as he moved closer, step by step, until he reached our driveway. And then he stopped, right next to our garbage cans. The rain poured down around him, but he didn't move, didn't look away, didn't speak. He just stood there, watching us. Something about the way he stood, too still, too focused, made my stomach twist, even at that age. My mom reacted instantly. She grabbed my hand tightly, her cigarette dropping to the ground, and pulled me inside. The moment we stepped through the door, he started yelling. Loud, aggressive. I don't remember exactly what he said, but I remember the fear. Raw, immediate, overwhelming. My mom slammed the door shut and locked it. Then she turned off every light in the house. The darkness swallowed everything. At that point, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I started crying. My mom rushed us, me, my brother, and my sister, into her bedroom. We all climbed into my parents' bed together, huddled close, listening, waiting. But after that, nothing. No more yelling, no footsteps, no knocking. Just silence. Eventually, one by one, we fell asleep. But that night, the fear didn't leave me, because when I finally slept, I dreamed of him, the man in the yellow raincoat, standing outside my window, watching me. I woke up shaking. The nightmare still clung to me like something real. In it, the man in the yellow raincoat had been standing right outside my window, staring in, not moving, not blinking, just watching me sleep. Even after I opened my eyes, I couldn't shake the feeling that he was still there. I started crying, quiet at first, then louder. My sister woke up beside me, confused and half asleep. I told her I had a nightmare, that I was scared. She tried to calm me down, whispering softly so we wouldn't wake our mom or brother. After a moment, she helped me out of bed and walked me to the bathroom connected to the bedroom. She closed the door behind us. The light was dim, but it felt safer than the darkness of the room. For a few seconds, everything was quiet. Then, bang! A loud thud shook the house. Then another and another. Someone was pounding on the front door. Not knocking, pounding, violently. My entire body froze. My sister didn't hesitate. She grabbed my hand and rushed out of the bathroom, running straight back to the bedroom. She started shaking our mom awake, panic written all over her face. My brother woke up too. We were all suddenly wide awake, terrified. My mom didn't say much. She just motioned for all of us to get into the bathroom. We obeyed instantly. The banging didn't stop. It got louder, faster.
Whoever was outside was now yelling, screaming for us to let him in. His voice was angry, unstable, desperate. I sat on the bathroom floor with my siblings, crying uncontrollably, my hands pressed over my ears, but I could still hear it. Every thud felt like it was hitting my chest. My mom stepped out of the room, moving quickly toward the front of the house. She was probably trying to find her phone, but when she came back, she didn't have it. That was the moment everything felt truly hopeless. There was no way to call the police, no way to get help. It was just us, trapped inside, with someone outside trying to get in. We huddled together on the cold floor, whispering, crying, praying someone, anyone would hear the noise and call for help. But no one came. The neighborhood stayed silent, like nothing was happening at all. After what felt like forever, the banging stopped, the yelling faded, and just like that, he was gone. We stayed there for a long time, too scared to move. Eventually, exhaustion took over, and somehow we fell asleep. But whatever had come to our door that night, it didn't feel like it was over.
For a while after that night, nothing happened. No knocking, no yelling, no sign of the man in the yellow raincoat. Life slowly started to feel normal again, at least on the surface. But the fear never fully left. It just settled somewhere deeper, quiet, waiting. Then, a few weeks later, we woke up to something far worse. The front door was open, wide open. Cold morning air drifted into the house, carrying a silence that felt wrong the moment we noticed it. My mom froze. I remember the look on her face. It wasn't confusion, it was fear. The kind that tells you something has already gone very wrong. She told us to stay back, but even as kids, we knew someone had been inside. The house felt different, disturbed, like it had been touched by something that didn't belong. We started noticing things missing. At first, small things, random items, easy to overlook. But then it became obvious. Drawers were slightly open. Objects weren't where they should be. And then, the worst part. My piggy bank was gone. It had all my savings, every bit of money I had been collecting for months. But that wasn't what made it terrifying. It was where it had been, right next to my bed, on my nightstand. Whoever came into the house had been in my room, while we were sleeping. A cold, suffocating fear filled my chest as that realization settled in. It wasn't just theft, it was something else, something closer, more personal. My mom called the police immediately. They came, took notes, asked questions, but in the end, nothing came of it. No suspect, no answers, just theories. We never found out who did it, but what made it worse was what I saw later. A few houses down from ours, there was a man who lived alone. We rarely saw him. He kept to himself, never really spoke to anyone. One day, I noticed something sitting on his porch. A vase. Large. Familiar. Too familiar. It looked exactly like the one that had been taken from our house, the one filled with money my family had been saving. I remember staring at it, my heart pounding. Was it the same one? Or just something that looked similar? I never found out. No one ever confronted him. No one ever proved anything. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling. The man from that night, the break-in, and that house down the street, somehow they were all connected. Or maybe that's just what fear does.
This happened almost 3 years ago, while I was serving a full-time mission in a small town in Idaho. The town was tiny. There wasn't much to do, and the isolation only made everything feel heavier. On top of that, I was dealing with self-esteem issues and trouble sleeping, which made the nights feel longer and darker. Spencer, my companion, and I were living in a small house, not an apartment like usual. The layout was simple. Front door leading into the main room with our desks. Bedroom immediately to the right. Straight ahead, a large open doorway to the kitchen. Bathroom to the right from the kitchen. Laundry on the left, plus a small storage closet. The landlord's house was right next door, so we had someone nearby if something went wrong. One night, I was in the living room, sitting at my desk, phone in hand, chair turned toward the kitchen. Spencer was in the bedroom, also on his phone. It had been dark for hours. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Then I heard it. A single knock from the window above the sink. I froze. The layout of the house meant you could see almost the entire living area from that window. I looked up. Nothing. Just darkness. I went back to my phone, convincing myself it had been a branch or something hitting the glass. But then, another knock. From the laundry room window around the corner. My heart started racing. The realization hit me like ice water. Someone was outside, circling the house. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe a neighbor, maybe a branch, but my gut said otherwise. Before I could process it, another knock came, from the window right beside me in the living room. I jumped up, running into the bedroom, and locked the door behind me. Spencer had heard it too. We debated what to do. We had nothing for protection but a couple of kitchen knives, and we didn't know how many people were outside or if they were armed. It was terrifying. The knocking moved from the windows to the front door. Each sound was heavier than the last. We couldn't call the police immediately. We were in the middle of nowhere. Help would take too long. Then Spencer remembered the landlord's number. He called. By now, there had been a pause in the knocking, but I knew what that meant. It was coming back. A knock at the bedroom window. The blinds were closed. They couldn't see us. We couldn't see them, but it was there. I realized in that moment, I likely looked right at the person the first time they knocked on the window in the kitchen and didn't even know it. The fear tightened around my chest like a vice.
We waited in the bedroom, hearts pounding, every creak and gust of wind making us jump. Then, a knock at the window again. The blinds were closed, thankfully, but I could feel the presence there. Someone outside, watching, waiting. Spencer whispered that the landlord was on the way with a shotgun. That tiny shred of hope was enough to keep us from panicking completely. Minutes dragged by. No more knocks, no movement, silence, but the tension was suffocating. Finally, the landlord arrived. He announced himself from outside. We asked if he saw anyone. No, he said, but I saw a pickup truck speeding away as I approached. We grabbed our flashlights and circled the house with him. The snow on the ground revealed something terrifying. Footprints. One set,
circling the house, deliberate, watching, waiting. We debated calling the police, but even if they came, it was too late. Whoever had stalked us was gone. We locked every door, checked every window, and tried to sleep, but sleep wouldn't come. Later, we asked around the town if anyone had played a prank. No one admitted to anything. Weeks passed. No further knocking, no sightings, but we knew it wasn't a prank. It wasn't the wind. Someone had been stalking us, and they had been clever. Every knock, every step in the snow, it had been a test, a calculated assessment of who was home and who wasn't. Even now, thinking back, I can feel that cold, silent presence circling, watching, just beyond the windows. It changed me. My sleep worsened, my fear lingered, and I never fully felt safe in that house again.
That night marked the beginning of a long, restless fear. Even when the house seemed calm, even when the snow had melted and the nights were warmer, I could feel it. The presence. Someone or something had been out there, circling, watching, waiting. Spencer and I eventually moved on with our mission work, but the memory stayed with me. We never discovered who had been outside, why they chose our house, or how long they had been planning it. The footprints, the knocks, the chilling silence, all of it haunted me. The fear was subtle at first, just a glance over the shoulder, a quick check of the windows. But over time, it became instinct. I never left a window unlocked again, never ignored a knock, and always made sure I could see who was outside before opening a door. Even now, years later, I sometimes hear a soft knock in my mind, in the quiet moments before sleep. I'll never know if it was him, or someone else, or just the echo of fear itself. All I know is that that night, and every night after, changed me. Forever aware, forever cautious, forever watched.